screen is shown through the connection. And so I can do things like play around with my notifications, switch to another screen layout here. Let me see if I've got any of my setups handy. Looking to see if I've got a particular cable available at my desk. It's a cable that had been hooked up to my computer to allow me to share from my phone. We'll do PowerPoint here as a different scene within the TikTok Live Studio. So the benefit here is if I head over to LinkedIn, my LinkedIn account, I can make sure that I've gone live on LinkedIn, and I can tune in and make sure that I can be heard. Phone. There we go. So I can hear it in there, and then I'm going to go to TikTok. And I can hear it both places. So my audio is working, and I'm using two different cameras to address that. So we're going to click on show the PowerPoint add-in. And then what I'm going to do in the TikTok Live Studio is I'm going to switch to my camera and PowerPoint view. And it's going to play a scene transition that I can configure. And then you're going to get my camera and a PowerPoint instead. The other thing you'll notice about the scene transition I just played is now my screen is in color as opposed to black and white. So how did I control that? How did I switch from black and white to color? Well, one thing that I did was I switched scenes. And the scene that I switched to was set up with video and a filter that turns my video to black and white. And then I turned on the color filters from a Windows 10 perspective. So let me drag that down so you can see where it is. It's in your settings on Windows 10, and there is a turn on color filters on or off. This is what made my video output from my computer black and white. It's not a filter, it's a built-in accessibility feature from an operating system perspective. And so one thing that we've talked about previously is the fact that this might help me identify things in an interface that might need to be addressed from an inclusivity perspective. If I record in the TikTok Live Studio, we'll see that I get a little button here that indicates that I'm recording when I hover over it. So I've been recording for 10, 11, 12 seconds. And that counter is my indication here in grayscale that something's going on. The button looks the same shape. It's not blinking or anything else. But if I turn off my color filters, what you'll notice is that the button is red. So if I am somebody that can't differentiate between red and green, or I have a difficulty expressing or seeing those different types of shades, when this is in grayscale, I can't typically differentiate between that button being on or off, right? And so now it's off, but the button looks the same as it did when it was red because it's no longer red. I turned on the grayscale color filter. And so one thing from an inclusivity perspective might be to turn on the grayscale on your Windows 10 or 11 computer and take a look at your PowerPoint, take a look at things that you're doing, and then determine, is this going to be as impactful, or will this be something that somebody can understand if they can't see color? So for instance, if I did something in a PowerPoint and I said green, and then I go to make that green from a color perspective. If I can't see what the colors are, all the colors just show up as levels of these different shades, but I can't really tell which one, unless I have it memorized, is green versus another option. But I do have high contrast, and it looks like that might be disabled because of the grayscale. Only non-transparent colors are currently supported. If I turn off the color filters and we go back to that dialog box that I just had up, this is where I can determine which one's green, which one's red, which red I want. Let's do that again to get it red. And then which one's, let's say blue. And which blue shade I'm using. I'm not sure why that's not picking up after I change it, but you get the idea. Here we've got green, red, and blue as bullet points. And then we can see that there are some differences, especially between green and red, but between red and blue, it's a little more difficult to tell the difference. So the grayscale feature within the operating system might be a way to help you differentiate the things that users that can't view or see those differences, don't see anything but shades of gray, might be experiencing. So now that I have a filter on my camera, so you can only see me in scales of gray, and then my computer screen in scales of gray, and then the link to download the TikTok Studio is in gray. My screen from a TikTok perspective looks entirely gray or black and white. So if you grew up with black and white TV, or you've ever watched a black and white television show, this is something that might be of interest to you, is how did he do that? So instead of keeping it a real big secret, I'm sharing that here on TikTok so that you're aware of some of the different ways that you might be able to use the TikTok Live Studio. So we've talked about scenes, and you can have up to 30 scenes, so 30 different layouts, cameras, information that you're sharing on the screen. That can be PowerPoints, that can be your camera, that can be different things that are set up as scene transitions. When you transition scenes, it's not going to turn off and on the color filters. So my video in the new scene, which is called Camera and PPT for PowerPoint, is now both in color because I turned on the or turned off the color filters, right? And then if I add sources, so we can have 30 scenes, but I can have up to 20 different sources that are shared. These can include links that open websites, text that appears on the screen, images. So if I wanted to share an image or logo, something else, I can do so within my live. And it tells you the formats that it supports. I can have dual layouts where people can see both my computer and other information. And then I could put in a logo to my live, resize my logo, put it wherever I want. Then you can see that I have a little bald head with glasses. My niece put this together. I think it's a pretty cool logo. So I could put that on the screen, make it a little bigger, decide where the logo goes. So you get the idea. These different scenes have the ability to have different imagery, video, and then I can hide and unhide the layers as well. So if I just wanted to really have you focus on me and the message that I'm conveying, I could do that by having you just listen to my message, taking my slides off the screen, and then avoiding you looking at the slides while you're listening to me. So lots of different things I can do. Now, at the same time that we're doing this on TikTok, we're also doing this on multiple platforms through the use of Restream. So Restream itself, if I go back to this screen, so you're not looking at kind of like a never-ending screen share of a screen share of a screen share, is an application at Restream.io. I have a subscription. I'm sharing this with Joseph from Nigeria. And Joseph is using this to test some things from Teams. So yesterday, one of the things we did was we shared the whiteboard application and to our TikTok Live Studio and switch from our PowerPoint, which is turned off, back to our black and white display. And my video is already black and white, and I'm going to turn back my grayscale so my screen becomes black and white, and go over to the Restream window here. So everything now should be black and white, whether you're on TikTok or whether you're on Restream. I believe I don't have a filter for my video, and I believe I have my video turned on. So my video on Restream would be in color, and then I think I've got some background as well. But if I turned off my video, one of the options there is that you're not seeing my video. I can add a media source, and I believe I can also add an avatar to my video when it's turned off. I think they added that feature. It doesn't look like they did in here. Virtual backgrounds are available. I've got keyboard shortcuts, participant names, graphics and captions on top of video clips. Guests can control all presentations. Got different settings within the app as well. So if I see if we can go back here to our media source, there we go. We've got our screen share without video. And so I believe the output at this point on LinkedIn should be entirely in black and white. I'm going to go ahead and double check that. I'm seeing a blank screen right now. There we go. Yeah, okay. So it is in black and white right now. And so with Restream, I can do two things with a stream. I can use Restream to stream with the studio, which I'm doing right now. That's just using the browser and then what I have configured in the browser. And you can use Restream Studio with TikTok if you have enough users. And if we find the TikTok Restream information or RTMP information. So I'm going to do a quick search to see if we can find that information here on the internet. I could do TikTok RTMP URL, and then it says how to get the TikTok stream key. And it says that we need this for TikTok integration. And then it says log into your TikTok account on your computer, go to Go Live. You'll be redirected to livecenter.tiktok.com/producer. Scroll down, click the red Go Live button at the bottom. You select a category and title for your stream, and then you click Go Live. Your dashboard will appear. Don't worry, you're not live yet. At the bottom, you'll see your server URL and stream key. And then it mentions don't share this with anybody because this is where they could broadcast to your TikTok profile. You copy this into your tool, in this case, Restream, and then you have the ability to stream to TikTok. So if you've ever wondered, how is somebody live on TikTok and they're also live on Instagram and they're live on their YouTube channel and I can find them on all these different places. It's the same video stream. This information from Restream about how to get your TikTok working with Restream is likely how they're doing it. So I can either use TikTok along with Restream, or I can use TikTok along with the Live Studio, or I can use TikTok from my phone, right? There's all these different ways that I can engage. If you are enjoying this, this live, feel free to give me some feedback. Comments are always welcome. Click in the upper left and heart this under the little icon in the upper left. I think it's over here. And it's over here or over here. One of the two. It's either on my right or my left. And in that area, you're going to see a little live icon. Let's see if I can figure out where I'm pointing here, which direction I should be pointing. I think it's over here. There's a little heart up here next to my name. If you click on that, you can go ahead and give me a heart. And then you can also collect some things from TikTok. I learned about that yesterday. I had no idea that was there. There's all sorts of things like joining a team. I had no idea what joining a team meant. What I was doing. Jalen, welcome. Thanks for joining. We are live in the TikTok Live Studio. Right now, I'm showing you that interface on the screen on TikTok. And then we're also live on several other platforms using a tool called Restream. Restream.io allows me to either use the Restream website or an encoder. This can be Zoom, this can be Teams, this can be Open Broadcaster software, vMix. There's all sorts of options that I can send from those to Restream, and then Restream can handle where it's sending that information out to. So if I do encoder RTMP, what Restream does is gives me that stream key and stream URL that we just saw information about getting for TikTok. And then you can see that the channels that I'm sending from Teams or whatever I configure on the front end, I can send out to up to 8 different channels. And so this is how you configure that in Restream. You go to Restream, you decide whether you're using the Studio or RTMP, which stands for Real-Time Media Platform, I believe. Some of these acronyms you realize you've looked up one time, and then acronym. And then you realize you've forgotten what the acronym. Real-Time Messaging Protocol is the RTMP. And so it's a standard that is used for streaming. And this is where you get that information from an online source, is within the Restream software. I'm going to go over to the Live Studio. I'm going to stop our recording, start our recording, and then we're going to talk about this just one more time for the audience that I can post about. So we're going to take a new black and white whiteboard in Microsoft's Whiteboard app. And we're going to use our finger to place this. And then we're going to use ink to draw this. We're going to say we've got TikTok, right? So we have a TikTok account. Using my left hand to draw. So it looks horrible because I'm not left-handed. But there we go. Got TikTok. And because TikTok can be used as the input or the output, I can decide if I'm using TikTok real time or if I'm just using TikTok, if I'm using other things. Restream as an application, if I draw that up here, can be used to send media, streaming media, to multiple platforms. With the license that I have, that can be up to 8 platforms. So I could use Restream to stream from TikTok or to TikTok, to stream to Facebook, to stream to LinkedIn, etc., YouTube, you name it, up to 8 of these with the license that I have. We'll do YT for YouTube, Twitch, you name it, X. That's an easy one, right? Because it's just an X now. You have to have X Premium to do so now. So you have to be an X Premium subscriber to stream to X. And Restream can be used as an app, as a website. It's an app that runs in a website, and it can go up to 8 channels. And then you can either use the Restream Studio, which I'm using in the next tab over, or you can use another application and send from that application, like Teams, Zoom, etc., to Restream, and then Restream handles sending it out to multiple platforms. Once you understand some of this stuff, it becomes much easier to configure and deal with. And right now I'm sharing my video and my audio in TikTok from the live studio, but I'm not sharing my video over on Restream. So if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, you're not seeing my video right now, but you are seeing my entire screen. So you can see what the live studio for TikTok looks like. Jose, thanks for joining. Looks like we've got one person. Feel free to give me a heart up here in the upper left, and collect your coins or your gifts from a TikTok perspective. I just learned about that yesterday. And then be sure to also tap the screen. So if you tap the screen in this live, we get interaction points, activity points, that type of thing. And you can keep tapping while you're watching. I just learned about that. I thought this was more passive, like YouTube, where you're just watching videos and you're either learning things or being entertained or both. So just learned about that. And this is like coming on to a live talk show, right? I can see that you're tuned in, and I can give you a quick shout out. I'm thinking about doing that at the Microsoft Build conference next month, because there are a number of technical community folks that have never been to Seattle or the Redmond area. The Microsoft campus will be downtown Seattle for the Build conference. This is a developer conference, so it's focused on creating things for Windows and devices and Microsoft Azure, Power Platform, Dynamics, etc. And so I'm likely to go live from that conference next month in May. And we may do some shout outs and figure out different ways to get people interactive on that at that event. So feel free to give me a follow. And if you give me a follow, we're at 350 followers. Thank you, everybody that's given me a follow. I appreciate it. And right now we're just doing a quick overview of the TikTok Live Studio. So I've just saved a file, a recording that explains what we've talked about so far. Restream, using Restream with TikTok or TikTok with Restream, and the various ways that I could do this configuration, right? several different ways that we could do this. Now, if I can figure out how to get the Live Studio to get rid of these two couldn't capture messages, not sure if there's an easy way to do that. Let's see if there is an easy way to fix that. Daily ranking, view ranks. Not sure if there's an easy way to avoid those messages showing up there in the Live Studio. I've tried changing to different layouts, which theoretically should be able to fix that. Now I have even more of those messages showing up. And the TikTok Live Studio just did an update on my behalf. So I've got a updated view of the TikTok Live Studio. The first two or the last two went away, and it looks like the two originals are still there. So when you switch between scenes, you're going to get these different scenes. And you can have blank scenes that are configured with nothing to begin with. And then you can configure other things within the scenes. In this case, it looks like my display. And then I can decide whether these are displayed or not displayed within the interface. And I get a landscape and a portrait view within the TikTok Live Studio, right? So what this means is portrait is when you're using your phone, and landscape is when you turn your phone sideways. So for instance, if I go into this live stream, we go and find my live stream. I show up with the portrait or the vertical layout here. So you should be able to see that now that I've got the portrait view, right? And then if I tap into the video, over here I've got a little box. And if I click on the box, it turns my phone sideways, and I get the landscape layout where my video is in the lower right. And then if I tap on the screen, I get a little arrow up here to the left, and the little arrow allows me to say, hey, I don't want to view this full screen anymore. Let's see if I can get it to come up. There we go. And then it goes back to portrait orientation. So the portrait and the landscape are basically the two views depending on how you're viewing this. And then under scenes, I can set up multiple scenes. Under settings in the middle of the application, settings wheel here. Once the settings come up, it takes about 5 seconds typically for the settings window to show up. Let's see if it's gonna pop open for me or not here. There, I think it just opened and closed. That could be a problem with the couldn't capture the program because it's been closed, because I don't see the settings window coming up. Some of these other things like the audio mixer just show up in place, but settings I believe should be a separate window that pops open. And from the settings, I can actually control the scene that plays when I switch between different scenes. And here we go, scene transition. It just took a little while. That's where it's playing the fist bump transition. I can play graffiti, which is a little different transition. And then I can also decide with my recording whether it's creating both landscape and portrait recordings or only one or the other. And then these recordings from the TikTok Live Studio are controlled from up here in the middle with the record button. Welcome, Jose. Welcome, Gordy. We're just talking about the TikTok Live Studio, and I'm giving you a quick tour of some of the features that I've found. So you have dual layout, portrait, if you turn your phone sideways, and it reorients, or if you click on the little box over here, I can actually switch my view to landscape, and then you can see my video this way. And then in the upper left, I have a little back arrow, and the back arrow allows me to go back to viewing it in portrait mode. So we're doing some demos of different things that you can do within the TikTok Live Studio. So I can obviously go live, right? That's down here in the middle. You have, when you get into the TikTok Live Studio, the ability to look at your scenes, set up your scenes, play around with different settings, make sure your mics are working. I don't know if you can record when you're not live. I will try that and post some information about it. But while you're live, I'm recording while I'm live, and I could obviously stop my live, pause my live, and change my scene. So by changing your scene, it plays whatever transition you have configured. And then the screen either goes into a different screen sharing. It could play a video, it could show an image, it could do all of the above. But you decide what it's doing when you switch scenes, and then you can switch scenes as many times as you choose. You can have up to 20 sources within a particular scene. So right now I have camera, text, and display capture in my black and white oriented scene here. And I can see that I have several different options. Display captures, I have 2 displays on my computer. So I could actually display capture from my larger widescreen monitor, capture my cursor, and then in this display, decide where I'm showing you my secondary monitor, which sits above my main monitor that's running the TikTok Live Studio. If I drag my TikTok Live Studio up to that other monitor and place it somewhere, you can see this in my screen share, but it's much smaller because my other monitor is much smaller. From a resolution perspective. So I turned down my monitor resolution so that hopefully you can see the entire TikTok Live Studio a little better, a little cleaner, crisper within portrait mode. Landscape mode gives it more room to actually show the screen. And so I can have 2 displays or 1 display captured, and then I can right click and rename those. So I could say ultra wide display. And then from my ultra wide display, I can turn off or on. I've actually got these backwards. So this is my surface display. I'm going to do a Control X to cut that and say this is my Surface Studio display. Surface Stud display because I ran out of characters. And then here we're going to do ultra wide 49. And then here we can just rename this Surface Studio. We don't need display. That should be self-evident. And then in the eyedropper, I can actually hide these layers so that they're no longer displayed. And so this is my ultra wide 49. Then the other display capture is my Surface Studio. I could rename that or not. Jalen Reyes, y'all, welcome. Up over here, if you give me a heart and collect your points on TikTok for being in this live, you get gifts for giving me attention. If you tap on the screen, double tap on the screen, that gives me some attention as well. And then if we come down here and we look at our recording, we've been going 4 minutes, giving you a quick tour of the TikTok Live Studio. So you can record, you can stop recording. And then in the settings, you can decide what you're recording. The way that I've set up my screen to be black and white is by setting up the screen to only be shown in grayscale. And that is listed under color filters in Windows. So if I want my screen to be in color, I turn these off. If I want it to be only black and white layers or different scales of gray, I turn on the color filters. So now that we have them turned off, I can see that I'm doing format in the dual layout. So I'm doing the recordings in both the portrait and the landscape view within here. And I can see the red because I'm recording now that I have this in color. My video is still in black and white. The reason for that is under the camera settings. I have a, I think it's called an effect or a filter. It's a filter. I have a black and white filter. So I have different black and white filters that I can use. And then I also have color filters that I can use. And so if I use a color filter, you see my video in color, and then you see the screen in color because I've configured that. And then I could either change my scene name by right-clicking on the scene on the left, rename, or I could just turn all these things back to black and white. So various scenes, you can have up to 30 scenes, and within a scene, you can have up to 20 sources. So you go live, you can record, you can see who's in your live. So Jose, welcome back. Feel free to give me a little attention up here by my name, and then you collect some points or some gifts or some notoriety up there in the upper left of TikTok. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about double tapping on the screen, and that gives us some interaction or activity points as well. So this is a little bit about the TikTok Live Studio. What else have we not talked about here during the recording? We haven't talked about the tools at the top. So because I don't have as many followers as I need to do multi-guest from within the TikTok Live Studio, I can still co-host. Co-hosting is reaching out to another creator to be live with you at the exact same time. So think about like a Teams meeting or a Restream or other social media. Most of those platforms allow you to invite people and have conversations as opposed to it just being you or who can join you in a physical space. So here I get quick invites, which just go out randomly to creators. I get friends. These are people, it was explained to me, that are following me and I'm following that are online. And I can also see that they're all in a live match, which with somebody else, or they are hosting with guests. And then below I can see join for people that I could join and request to be live with, or I can invite them to join me in my live. And if they're not available, I can see what's going on with their lives. So this just shows up, I think, based on people being in the same screen. And then I can also refresh that invite screen to see who's following me that's also co-hosting, and I might be able to jump in and say hi to. Under settings, this is an interesting one. You can set up your layout for when you go into these. So if I want to share my screen, just like I'm doing with all of you, when I jump into the live, I can share the screen. And this is supposed to save that setting that I want to show my screen and my camera. In my experience, it doesn't save the setting. So you may have to go back into it to set that scene. But what I could do here is create another PowerPoint. And I couldn't call this Live Studio on TikTok. And then by doing the designer function in Microsoft PowerPoint, I get a potential recommendation. We'll save this file to my computer, save it to my TikTok folder on E, I believe. And we'll call this Cameo and TikTok. And then save. And then by saving that, I should get the designer function back. Not sure why it's showing as grayed out. Open the designer pane for instant style makeovers. Doesn't look like designer's too happy with me right now. But what typically you can do here, and I can probably show you in another scene that I've created, TikTok Live Studio Tuesday. There we've got the TikTok Live Studio with a welcome and a couple screenshots of being in a match with somebody. So match shows you how you're doing against the other creator. And then you can see the live either match or just conversation going on live within the TikTok Live Studio. So I took a couple screenshots, and then if I did this as the layout, when I go into those live matches, people would see my video the same way you're seeing it now. They only see your current scene, so you can't change scenes while you're in those conversations with others. So you have to decide, am I sharing my version of my screen or what am I doing once I'm in those different co-hosting situations. So folks, that's a little bit about the TikTok Live Studio. And I've created a short recording of that that's about 6 minutes long. And then we've also been live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and I believe both of my profiles from a standpoint of YouTube. So I'm going to go double check that we're live on Facebook here. Looks like we are. Kyle, thanks for the like on the Facebook side of things. And then I'm also going to check on the YouTube side of things. Bring up my live studio welcome screen. And then I'm going to see if I can see this on YouTube. Then I'll know if everything's working on the different platforms from Restream. It's always interesting to see what's working and what isn't. So it looks like my live from yesterday worked. It doesn't look like it picked up my live on that channel. Or maybe the configuration didn't work. I'm not sure which. Yeah, for some reason it's either not live or it's not listed. And we can see if we see the live here. Yeah, it doesn't seem like I'm live on either of my YouTube channels. So I probably have to troubleshoot that, figure out why it's not going live on YouTube. But we are live on both LinkedIn and Facebook. I have confirmed that. And then I can resize my window here from a standpoint of my secondary monitor. And we can open the main TikTok Live Studio. So to shut everything down, Angel, welcome. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. I'm going to give you a quick hi. Feel free up here to click on the, I think it's the heart in TikTok. That gives me some information and attention. And then it also allows you to collect, if you click on that heart again, some points or some things in TikTok. I'm just learning TikTok right now. But it gives you some things. as well as me some notoriety on TikTok. And then besides that, we are showing off the TikTok Live Studio. So when it's time to end a live, I've been going live for an hour and 10 minutes so far. So I'm racking up live metrics and live, time on the platform. I can do one of two things, right? I can decide it's time to end the live for everyone. It's time for everybody to say goodbye and, continue on with whatever else we have to do. Or I can decide to turn off these things individually. This would be like turning off the faucet versus removing something that's collecting all of the water or the thing you're pouring into a container. I can stop pouring, or I can remove what I'm pouring it into. So the stop pouring option is to turn off the different sources that I have. So one of my sources is supposed to be going to both of my YouTubes, Facebook, and LinkedIn. This is a good thing to record if I can. It looks like I can't record it in here, but I can go to PowerPoint and I can record it in PowerPoint. So let's go ahead and pop out of here. Let's add a new slide. And let's actually screen record here on my computer. We'll record the main section of my computer. And then we'll do my 3-second countdown. And we'll show how we complete the puzzle to confirm that I'm still live on TikTok. So every hour, hour and a half, hour and 10 minutes randomly, you get this interaction on the TikTok Live Studio to confirm that you're actually still there. So it plays that little song or jingle, and then it makes sure within 5 minutes that you confirm that you are still here. You are still you're paying attention. You're still there on TikTok Live. So I got this at 1 hour and 12 minutes today. So if I stop my creation there, it actually goes into a PowerPoint slide. And let's call that slide Live Studio confirmation. So it confirms that you're still live. So it's getting to the point of wrapping up. I can either stop my live studio recording, right, and end my live, and then say goodbye to all of you on TikTok that are here live. And I get some stats and I get some other information when I stop my live. And then I can close the live studio and reopen it, or I could reboot into Windows 11. This computer is dual boot from Windows 10 to Windows 11. So I could show you the same studio in Windows 11 that I'm showing you in Windows 10. But I can decide to stop my live or pause my live here. In the same way that I can do that, I can stop my LinkedIn stream and Facebook stream. Or I can choose to stop sharing my screen and reshare my video here. So my video camera that I'm using on Restream is sharing my little desk flexi spot that I have under my desk, which looks pretty similar to let's call it bike chair. This is the one that I have. So it looks like the original flexi spot under desk exercise bike in either white or black are being sold. It looks like you had an option to put like a back to your desk chair, and then they have a new one that has a little stand in front of it. And so this is kind of the setup I have, is just the original without the back. It's like riding a bike, right? So you have to kind of hold your core up and that helps you with your muscles, and it's kind of getting a workout at your desk. So that's why I categorize this live as well under fitness, because I am riding a bike at my desk while I am talking to all of you. So if I pedal, you can see my legs moving up and down. You can see my swatch from Madrid. So this is my Madrid swatch that I got for my birthday from my gal. Charity gave me that for my birthday while we visited Madrid, Spain. I was out of the country for the first time for my birthday. So up here, if you give me a little rose, I guess, or a heart. I think somebody told me it's called a heart, but it looks like a rose to me. That's free to you, and it gives me engagement, and it gives you gifts that you can go back into that heart or that rose and collect. I had no idea that was in lives. I also didn't know that you could join the teams for lives when people are live. Somebody explained that to me yesterday. I don't remember exactly the steps to do that, but I'm looking to document a lot of these things because I didn't know they existed on TikTok. So I'm assuming other people might be the same. So we're live on LinkedIn. We're live on Facebook. The other thing that I can do within Restream when I'm using the Restream tool is that I can actually look at my interaction from messages that come in from Facebook or LinkedIn. YouTube, I believe I can send both ways. So if I am live on YouTube, message to YouTube, and then we can see if that goes out to my YouTube, and then you can actually show your messages if they are two-way. Thanks for learning about TikTok Studio. And it's the live studio, right? And enter, and then I can display that on the screen. And then besides showing this to my audience, I can also share my screen again, which would let my audience see my screen. And then I get this sharing hide message. And I can also stop sharing the screen and show this window where I choose what I'm sharing. And I could put that into something like PowerPoint as a separate slide. And I could actually capture what it looks like in Restream as the producer view, which a lot of people have interest in understanding the difference between, what does it look like when you're a guest on Restream versus when you're sharing something on Restream. So if I share the entire screen here, I can decide whether I'm showing you the fact that I'm sharing, and it's a reminder that I'm sharing my entire screen. But now if I go back over to the TikTok Live Studio, you can see the live studio from Facebook and LinkedIn, other platforms. If you follow me on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, you can also find my TikTok at tiktok.com/@stilldre. So I'm putting that in the video and out to those other platforms. And then in the TikTok Live Studio, you're obviously already here. So Angel, thanks for stopping by. And Jose, thanks for tuning in. If you give me a little heart up here, That allows you to support me as a creator, and it also allows you to collect some GIFs in TikTok. So I had no idea that existed. Right next to my name in the upper left, you can click on the little icon there, and that gives me something, and it lets you collect some things that help you as a TikTok user. So the reason this was listed as fitness is because I'm riding my exercise bike at my desk. If I turn back on my video here, we get my video, and I can swap my video, I think, entering full screen. And then I think there is a way to switch these two things. It's been a while since I used Restream and kind of played around with all the different options. I can add different scenes. Here it is. And then I can play around with the size. And I can decide whether I'm on the left or the right of the video from Restream. And then if I have enough followers and TikTok seems pleased enough with me to allow me to do this, I can actually go live from Restream to all these different platforms. So I don't have to target them separately with separate tools. So right now from TikTok, I'm using the TikTok Live Studio. And then with Restream, I'm using everything else. So I essentially have this kind of setup, right? I'm doing TikTok independently with the Live Studio, and then I'm using Restream, and I'm actually live on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then YouTube is kind of a question mark. I don't have a X Premium account subscription right now, so I'm not live on X Premium, but you can do up to 8 of these different sources with the license that I have for Restream. So 8 channels, they call them, are what you can configure with the license that I have. And then I'm getting information out to those different platforms with Restream. And I'm getting information from my computer out to TikTok through the TikTok Live Studio. If you want to download the Live Studio, the link is right here in the broadcast. On TikTok, tiktok.com/studio/download. If I want to make sure everybody on Restream saw that link and had it handy, I can go to Restream. I can either post a chat about it, or I can just type it in here, studio/download, hit enter, and then I can actually show that on the screen. So if you are a creator and you're thinking about, how could I benefit from using something like StreamYard or Restream, one of the options, and I believe both of those platforms, both of those online video streaming platforms, is multiple channels. And I believe you can configure your TikTok if you have enough users and followers. And then if you use that in the same way that I'm live on both Facebook, my Facebook account is facebook.com/StillDre. My LinkedIn account is linkedin.com/in/StillDre. My YouTube accounts are youtube.com/@StillDre and @DRayMSFT, my first initial last name, at symbol here, first initial last name MSFT for Microsoft is my other channel. So I have 2 YouTube channels, and I can post, kind of cross-reference those so people can find them easily here within Restream. That will help me from a standpoint of my engagement on YouTube, right? Because it's going to let people know about the different ways to find me on YouTube. So part of this experiment that I'm doing really this month is when I've started this, is to take a look at, if I spend some time and if I engage on these platforms, can I build these platforms into something like I have on X, which is formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn, which is still LinkedIn, even though they're acquired by Microsoft. Microsoft made very little changes to LinkedIn. Separate offices, separate culture, separate HR, separate benefits, all sorts of things different at LinkedIn than Microsoft. If you weren't aware of that Microsoft owns LinkedIn or that LinkedIn still kind of operates separately, I'm happy to have a conversation about that as well. The reason we called this a fitness episode on TikTok is because I'm sitting at my desk on my Flexi Spot bike chair. So this isn't sponsored necessarily by Flexi Spot, but I found this when I ordered a Flexi Spot standing desk and thought, hey, a bike under it would be a pretty unique way to be a little more active while I am training or I'm working, and will help prepare me for the spring and the summer when I can go biking more often than I have in the winter. So the plan is to get in bike shape so that I can go biking more from a physical activity perspective. So that's why I put this one under fitness and sports. I've gone live a couple times from the tennis courts. And so that's the other place that you may have seen a TikTok that was under the category of fitness and sports. I believe those you configure when you go into the TikTok live. You give it a category up here. I don't believe you can't change the topic while you are live. So I could stop this live, sit down in a comfy chair, and redo this live as a different category like learning or beauty, if I were doing some, beauty tips and tricks in, shaving my beard or coloring my beard. We did that on one of our lives. I used some of my dye that allows me to put the Microsoft logo colors in my facial hair. So we did that on one of our lives. We could call that, I guess, beauty and fitness. From a category, I don't know if that helps people find you that have interest in those topics, but that's something you configure when you go live. And then I can also set up to expand my audience by scheduling my lives. So instead of these just being random when I have time and I'm sitting at my desk free, I could actually schedule my lives so that you know what time and what topics we might be online talking about. On Saturdays, we do an online show called the Azure and AI Show. One thing that I tried for the first time last Saturday was actually sending a pre-show to TikTok, and then we use StreamYard for that one. We go live on multiple platforms using StreamYard. This week, we might be using Restream as opposed to StreamYard. And I'm going to coordinate with those folks to see if we can also try something over on TikTok, either one person's TikTok or maybe multiple TikToks. So feel free to give me a follow. That's going to help me with my goal of reaching 1,000 followers. I'm at 350 when I checked this morning. Let's see if the number has changed at all over the course of our live here. Looks like we're still at 350 followers, so we're over a third of the way there, folks. Thank you so much for your support. Feel free to give me some support up here in the upper left of your screen. Giving me a heart up there gives me some attention from TikTok, and then allows you to go ahead and collect some recognition and information from TikTok. And then I believe there's also a way to join the team here within TikTok. And I'm going to see if I can find that one. Become a top viewer. And then where do I go to set up and become a team member? I think I might already be part of the team somehow. So the subscription is also available. I haven't figured out the whole subscription thing, but my thought is that we'll probably do some shout outs through subscriptions to folks that are subscribers and maybe give them some exclusive content or downloads, things that are available to subscribers on a monthly basis. So thanks for tuning in, folks. I'm going to go ahead and end our events. We're going to end them separately because they're in two different spots. From the Restream perspective, I'm sharing my Restream screen with all of you with my video and my screen. So I can stop sharing my screen first by coming down here to stop sharing screen. And then it's just going to go to my video on the different platforms. We'll go ahead and remind you how to get to my TikTok here. If you want to check out the lives on TikTok, it's tiktok.com/@STILLDREY. Appreciate the support. And I can also do QR codes. I can do music within, I think it's the design choice here. I can put up logos within Restream. And the music, I believe, is, I want to say used to be under this category, but I don't see the music there. Here it is. It's a separate category now, music. So I think you can do TikTok as well. Live studio, so I can make the music a little quieter. So there's branding options here, and one of the channels that I can add is TikTok. So if I edit my channel, I have enough subscribers, I set up TikTok, I can do so down here once I have streaming allowed within. So thanks for attending. Have a great day. And we'll end our stream to the other platforms.